We got a lot to talk about tonight. Congressman Jim Langevin's in the House, and so we shall forego our usual format and spend some special time with him. Welcome into My State of Mind. Yes, I know the set looks a little bit different due to some logistics issues. We're taping this program on Tuesday night. You're seeing it on Friday, and that gives us an advantage because I can't talk about today's news because it's not today. But the conversations that we're going to have, I think, are long-lasting, important, and timely, even though it's Tuesday night and it's Friday night for you. Today, Congressman Jim Langevin had a conversation about cybersecurity with the local community. Lots going on.
It took Anthem, a giant health insurer, more than 2 months to alert its customers of a data breach.
Watch your fingers.
Yep. Home Depot, more than 5 months. And Target, over a month. All too long, and therefore ID thieves had time to steal hundreds of millions of customer information.
Cybersecurity is never a problem that we're going to solve. It's a problem to be managed.
Through the passage of laws.
Tuesday, Congressman Jim Langevin unveiled bills that would give customers affected by hackers added protection. The Personal Data Notification and Protection Act requires companies to notify customers within 30 days of the breach.
They can rest assured that within 30 days, they're going to be notified by that business so that then they can be more proactive at monitoring their credit report and they can prevent any problems from occurring in the first place.
Well, that was earlier today. Good to see you.
Great to see you too, Dan.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on.
How'd you get into this thing? You like this cyber thing?
I do, and I've been at it for a while, but it really happened by, I guess, circumstance that I was chairing a Homeland Security subcommittee that had jurisdiction over cyber. I had never really, thought of cyber as such a big issue, but the more we got into it and we realized how vulnerable, for example, critical infrastructure is to a cyber attack, it really raised a red flag with me, and we started doing more and more research on it and hearings and our due diligence. And the internet, as we come to find out, and I understand now, is that it was never built with security in mind. It was built with this free and open architecture, and it's really proliferated into this amazing tool that we use every day. But with that, because it was this free and open architecture, never built with security in mind, it's caused great vulnerabilities. And we are probably the nation that is most dependent and uses the internet the most of any other nation on the planet. And with that, we are extremely vulnerable. It's the thing that keeps me up late at night, and I'm hoping that that we can take steps to close those apertures of vulnerability.
So that late at night thing, is that cliche or is that true?
Well,
3 o'clock in the morning, you're thinking, oh boy, what?
Well, oh boy, that on the worst case scenario that we are the victims of a major cyber attack on our electric grid, let's say, that shuts down the electricity in the dead of winter for not just a period of days or weeks, but potentially for months. It's something that realistically could happen. I hope it never does, and I'm hoping that we can make sure that we're taking proactive measures to prevent that from happening. But it is a real possibility. You saw it not long ago, I'm sure, that they detected what's called a zero-day exploit on parts of our electric grid, probably put there by China, and it was just sitting there that could be activated if the event that they ever decided that now was the time that they wanted to activate that kind of virus.
So tell me, what is your intelligence and acumen level now on this cyber thing? Something that has grown simply because you read a lot about it, or could you teach a class on it right now? I mean, are you that in tune with the technology and how to explain it on a pedestrian level to everybody what the real worries are?
Well, I look at it of what's happening, what we know. So I would say to people, there's a few different areas. There's the average hacker or criminal activity that goes on, stealing individuals' identity or bank account information or their credit card numbers. We see that, seems like, every week. That's the impetus behind me introducing the data breach notification bill that you just aired, that would require companies to let customers know within 30 days of a company being aware that they were hacked, that customer information is stolen. I think that's the very least we can do, and to protect and make individuals aware that did it. But the second thing is the cyber espionage, meaning nation-state capability or others that are stealing our intellectual property. We're getting hosed every day or every year that billions of dollars of U.S. intellectual property are stolen every year. That concerns me. It's costing our economic competitiveness, and it's costing us American jobs. The third aspect of cybersecurity is the worst-case scenario, cyber attack, that they could basically a nation state or potentially individuals with the right tools could cause catastrophic damage equivalent to what only in the past could only be achieved with kinetic weapons, missiles or bombs or such. Could ostensibly the same thing could happen now with a few keystrokes.
We got Russian hackers inside the White House, we read today, last year for a couple of months, and they're not sure that they're out. Now they're reportedly non-public, non-classified places in the cyber world in the White House, a lot of outreach, PR function of the White House, but there you go. Reportedly they're just sitting in there and they're not exactly sure whether they're out. I don't understand that. We don't know if they're out of the system yet. That's not.
No,
that's not good.
It's not good. It's disturbing. But that's what happens, by the way. A lot of times when a hack has taken place, they're there for a while, and that's why the data breach notification bill that I put in. I want customers to know as soon as possible. I think 30 days is reasonable. I'd be fine if there's some states that require even shorter time frames, which I'm fine with. But more than likely, this hack or these hackers have been on the system probably for months. The average is about 7 months.
All right, so your bills are proposed. They're not. Where are they in the system?
I've introduced them.
Yeah.
So there's the 30-day data breach notification to notify customers. Right. The second one is protecting. It's a bill that would require the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to come up with a mechanism by which kids' identity could be protected. So, for example, let's say when a parent applies for a Social Security number for their child, I'd like a mechanism whereby they could lock their credit, if you will, that somebody, even if they got the Social Security number and then they went to a bank or a credit card company and tried to open up some kind of an account in the child's name and steal their identity, that it would raise a red flag that they would be prevented from opening up that credit in the first place. And then later on, when the child is older, 18, that they can unlock that block, and then they can open credit in their name. But think about it. Kids' data gets stolen actually at a higher rate than adults, and you don't find out about it for years because the child is not going to open credit to his or her name until
what's the projection on where these bills sit? Are you considered right now a go-to guy that when you write a bill, it's going to get some traction?
I know that I'm one of the very few people in Congress that spend this much time on cybersecurity. And
does that give you equity with the leadership?
It does. It does. I definitely am. My opinion is sought out frequently on cyber-related issues. And I'm fortunate now to be in a position that when I speak about cyber, people listen.
Well, tell me about the timing on these kinds of things. I mean, like how the sausage is made governmentally. Do you proffer to leadership? You're ready to put one of these bills in? Nothing gets done without everybody knowing what's going on. So when you say, "Look, I've got these bills," and you do a local press conference, the local congressman has egg on his face if it goes nowhere. So you must feel like you got some traction for it.
We have some traction, but look, I've been at this for years trying to get cybersecurity legislation to the House, as has others, by the way. It's not, it's not only me. And so far, it's not gotten the attention or the support that it needs. We've a couple of times.
Well, you get a couple more mishaps in Hollywood and retail operations, and the consumers will be begging for it.
Definitely has built a critical mass around awareness. Now the American people are demanding action, I believe, and we passed a couple of bills through the House. The Senate has really been the problem. So we're hopeful that the Senate is going to take up some of these information sharing legislation. Okay. And by the way, I just want to compliment and thank Senator Whitehouse for his extraordinary leadership on the Senate side on cyber. He's a go-to guy on cybersecurity, and I'm very grateful for his leadership on it.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the president's activity, the Iranian situation, and there are people running for president, I hear. Stay with us. There's that.
The White House put Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz front and center Monday to defend the nuclear deal being negotiated with Iran.
This is not built upon trust. This is built upon hard-nosed requirements.
Moniz says despite reported differences coming from Tehran, the U.S. and Iran are on the same page with the framework agreement. And President Obama pushed back against critics during a New York Times interview, convincing skeptical allies as part of the administration's sales push, with a meeting between President Obama and the leaders of several Gulf nations set for later this spring.
Yeah, this is a hot issue. We are borrowing a different studio tonight for Congressman Jim Langevin, who's been kind enough to spend the entire half hour with us here this evening. You showed up for Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. Jack Reed did too, but Sheldon White House didn't, and David Cicilline didn't, as I understand it.
No, David was there.
Did David? Did he show up?
As I recall, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
White House didn't.
That's right.
Why is he crank on like that? What's the matter with him? White House.
I'm not going to speak for Senator Whitehouse, and people have different views as to whether they should be there or not. I felt the preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon is one of the major security challenges that we have of our time right now that we're confronting. And you have the leader, the Prime Minister of Israel, who's there to talk about this issue and give his perspective and Israel's perspective. And I felt that it was important to be in the room.
You know, perhaps I made some assumption that your comrade in the House didn't show up because he cranked on at length about the nasty politics that went along with the Speaker's invitation to the Prime Minister. Whatever. Did you think it was a big breach of the way the United States ought to be doing business when it comes to foreign policy and the like? Did you think that his showing up for that presentation showed up our president?
Well, I don't like the way the Speaker, handled the protocol aspect of it. I think he used it as an opportunity to jam the president. It could have been handled differently, with the same result, by the way. I think that the Prime Minister still would have been able to come to speak before the. But it's inside. It's kind of insider baseball. It's Washington politics, and the more important thing is the issues, and that's why I wanted to be there to hear the speech.
The president has been trying to defend this very loose agreement that has developed here. Here's one of his comments with Tom Friedman from the New York Times a little bit earlier this week. Clearly, he feels like he has to go on the offensive. Perhaps we have that. Do we have it? Let's see it.
Number one, this is our best bet by far to make sure Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon. And number two, what we will be doing even as we enter into this deal is sending a very clear message to the Iranians and to the entire region that if anybody messes with Israel, America will be there.
The Israelis feel all too good about this. Where do you stand on this?
Well, first of all, I understand that the state of Israel has a lot at stake. If we get this wrong and Iran does obtain a nuclear device, you have a government and you have high-ranking officials in the Iranian government talking about wiping Israel off the face of the planet. I take them at their word, and we have to be very clear that we're not going to allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. So I understand the angst on the part of the Israelis.
But the deal allows for continuing enrichment of uranium, and so...
But you have the IAEA or the international community, you have inspectors on the ground. I don't trust the Iranians for a minute about what they say they're going to agree to. It's what we can prove, is that I believe. And if we have inspectors there on the ground, that is the threshold for me, is that can we monitor to what degree the Iranians are enriching to. And there is a big difference between enriching to low enrichment levels that allow for research or for powering a nuclear reactor that provides power to their people. And then enriching to weapons grade at 90%, that could be used for a fuel for a nuclear bomb. So it's a very complex, very difficult thing to enrich to 90%, according to the physics, as I've become to understand it. And as long as we can monitor that they're not enriching to weapons grade, we have assurances that they can't fuel a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, we don't have listen, I understand how difficult this thing is, and I don't think there's necessarily a partisan debate, because there are folks on both sides of the aisle who see this thing differently, inside the Republican Party, inside the Democratic Party, cross-section debate going on. What is Congress's role in this, and where do you project this ratification process to be?
Yeah, I want to review the terms of the agreement, which, by the way, there is no final agreement yet. That won't come until June. Right now we have the broad outline of what an agreement will look like. So again, the devil will be in the details, and Congress does have a role to play. The president can only suspend sanctions. He can't repeal the law unilaterally. That only Congress can do that. And by the way, all parties in this negotiation should want the Congress to review it and sign off, because again, the law can't be repealed unless Congress votes to repeal the sanctions.
Speaking of Congress, let's talk some politics here for a second. Hillary going to be the candidate and the only candidate for the Democrats?
I believe that Hillary Clinton is going to be our nominee. I co-chaired her campaign 8 years ago when she ran here in Rhode Island, and I was proud to do that, and I look forward to supporting her again. Obviously, then she's going to have to make her case to the American people as in the general election about why she's the best candidate. But I believe that she's going to be a very strong candidate.
So you're speaking as if she's going to have more or less a primary free run here.
Well, I understand Martin O'Malley says he's going to run, so I haven't heard anybody else as a serious candidate that is going to challenge her. But I think she's incredibly well respected, and she's proven herself as a diplomat and as a U.S. Senator. And I believe that she's about to break a glass ceiling and become the first woman to serve as President of the United States.
She can't figure out how to manage her emails.
That's something that she's going to have to continue to explain and such. As I understand, by the way, that the law was not, or the requirement was not clear and direct until after she left as Secretary of State. Now, I'm not defending, why she had her email on a personal server versus on a government server.
I mean, look, listen, Congressman, I got 5 emails on this phone. I mean, separating. She didn't even go that far, So I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker, but it does give people some pause in terms of discretion. Reportedly, she's going to take a much more pedestrian strategy in this primary. She's going to do a lot less showbiz and a lot more on the ground hoofing it. That must mean that she doesn't think she has to do any showbiz, that reconnecting with the people is the strategy. Don't the people know enough about her at this point? And doesn't she suffer the chance that she's got chips this high and recognition, all she can do is kind of lose them? How does she gain equity with the American people? They know her so well.
Well, I think they know a lot about her. What they don't yet know is her vision for the future and how she wants to lead, where she wants to bring the country. And that is something that we have. I think she has a legitimate obligation to explain to the voters, and I'm anxious to hear what her vision, her plan will be. But
well, it could be Jeb Bush. Just take your congressman hat off for a second. I mean, aren't you a little exhausted by Clinton and Bush in the last 20 years?
I'm excited about new leadership and new opportunities for the future. So both candidates are going to have to make their case to the American people.
Does it feel new to you if we project an election with Hillary and Jeb?
It depends on the ideas. Look, ultimately it's the American people that are going to decide who their next president should be. On the Republican side, they're going to have to go through a rigorous primary process and determine who their nominee will be. It seems like Hillary is going to be the nominee for the Democrats. I'm excited about that.
All right. When we come back, some more stuff, an anniversary on the ADA, and that's important to this guy and to you. I'm over here. Be right back. Honored to have Congressman Langevin with us on this Friday evening. We're taping the program on Tuesday, and due to some logistics, we ended up in a different studio. So no, this haphazard blue on brown and maroon and chubby guy on the screen looking really fat on either side is just part of the temporary situation here. I like my other studio. I can hide. Look at that. Jim, I have to tell my producer just said, please stop pointing out your personal foibles. This is, don't you think radio's easier?
Radio's definitely easier, yeah.
Look, the ADA, American Disabilities Act, is actually having a 25th anniversary this summer. clearly it's important to you. Your personal struggle I've commented on it on it often. And what it takes for you to get going every day, I find to be moving and courageous. You don't talk about it much, though. You don't like to talk about it, do you?
No, I mean, I do what I do. It's, we all have challenges and obstacles and difficulties in our lives. I'm no different, and I know you're no different. Other people have challenges, and, mine are, different than others, but look, I get up every morning inspired by the work I do, and grateful for the privilege I have of representing what I think is the best congressional district in the whole country, the best state in the whole country.
You've never
some
looked
of the
better. I mean,
hardest
you look
working people.
healthy as a horse. So I don't know what the heck you're doing, but maybe you can give me some notes. It's fantastic. What does the anniversary of the act mean to you?
Well, it's the 25th anniversary of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I remember my accident happened in 1980, so it was about a decade before the ADA was passed. I remember what the world was like before passage of ADA, and I have experienced what it's like after it, and it's a marked difference, and it's definitely the civil rights law of my generation, or of the one of the most important of the 20th century. And
What do you think marks that growth? Give me an example of what you think the 25 years has most significantly changed.
It's both the physical changes of making places accessible, allowing for reasonable accommodations to be made for access and inclusion, but it's also the perception, in a sense, the before, when accommodations were made, it was kind of a courtesy, a nicety, if you will. Now it's a civil right that people have a right to be included into society, that with disabilities, that they can have access to public accommodations and restaurants and the airlines and such. And it wasn't that way before the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act.
And they could run businesses, and they can run for Congress, and they can be elected, and my mom was a quadriplegic, so I lived the stairs. I lived the feeling, at least seeing her being subject to the stairs. It was the staring, and now I think there's less staring, don't you think?
Yeah, I think people look at it's just been a societal change in the attitude of how people with disabilities are treated, how they're again, it's more of a civil right that people have a right to be included in society, with irrespective whether they're able-bodied or live with a disability.
25 years, time flies.
Time flies. So the 25 years is exciting, not as exciting as the 20th anniversary when I was able to preside over the U.S. House. For me, personally, I was one of the highest privileges of my life, including my elective career. But the 25-year anniversary is so meaningful to so many, and it's a great milestone to celebrate.
All right, good to see you. Don't be a stranger. Come back soon, will you?
I promise I will.
All right, when we come back.
Thanks for having me on, too.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Your state of mind and what's coming up for next week. Stay with us. Anytime we get a major newsmaker, there I am. You jump in a new studio, you mess up like 5 times. Anytime we have a provocateur like the congressman in, you'll have things to say, so kick them back. Your state of mind is important to us. 228-1886, state of mind at myeritv.com. Dan York Show, both on Facebook and on Twitter. Don't forget the E, or it won't get to me. Coming up on the Monday broadcast, Representative Blake Filippi, he's got an idea that elections can only be won by a majority vote. You understand the difference between plurality and majority, don't you? Our last 2 governors have been a plural victory, not a major victory. And while it probably has no shot, it's at least worth the conversation. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Good night.